The streets of Paris in 1821 were thick with fog, each alley whispering secrets of the night. A dancer named Elodie moved through shadowed ballrooms, her presence both haunting and mesmerizing. Every eye followed her, unaware of the darkness that clung to her like a second skin. Midnight performances were her domain, each step a fragile balance between brilliance and terror. Whispers spread about her, how she vanished from one stage only to appear in another, her smile masking a tragedy no one dared name. The audience felt a chill, a subtle unease that turned excitement into fear. No one knew that behind her elegant gestures, a sinister force stalked her relentlessly. She had seen things others could not, shadows that lingered long after the candlelight flickered. Rumors spoke of a cursed theater, where performers were marked and doomed before the final bow. Elodie's talent drew attention from powerful patrons, men whose interest concealed darker intentions. Late nights were haunted by silent observers, eyes glinting in corners waiting for a misstep. Her friends whispered of strange accidents backstage, props moving on their own, notes appearing in her dressing room. Despite the applause and admiration, she felt the weight of unseen eyes and whispered threats. Every performance was a dance on the edge, between art and the abyss that beckoned her closer. Blood had been spilled in theaters before, but Elodie's fate seemed more deliberate, more malignant. Each night she danced, the air grew heavier, charged with anticipation of something terrible yet inevitable. The city itself seemed to mourn, fog curling around rooftops like spectral fingers pointing toward her fate. She confided in no one, knowing that trust in Paris could be fatal, secrets often exchanged for cruelty. Candle flames flickered unnaturally, shadows stretching longer than reason allowed, as if the walls themselves watched. Her movements became faster, sharper, the rhythm of fear embedded in every graceful arc. Some said she heard whispers calling her name from empty corridors, voices cold as death. The audience felt it too, a shiver that ran beneath applause, unnoticed but undeniable. In her dressing room, a note appeared one night, written in trembling ink. "You cannot escape what has been chosen." The words chilled her more than any winter draft seeping through cracks in the ancient theater. She attempted to ignore them, focusing on the dance, yet the unease coiled tighter with each performance. Her reflection in mirrors seemed distorted, shadows forming shapes that did not belong to her. Backstage, the air was thick with a copper scent, subtle but unmistakable, warning of imminent bloodshed. She had become both performer and prey, her art a beacon, drawing darkness toward her inevitable collapse. The final rehearsal before midnight revealed a truth she could no longer deny. She was being watched constantly. Her heart pounded with dread, each beat echoing the rhythm of approaching doom that the theater refused to hide. Footsteps that weren't hers brushed the floorboards, and whispers seeped from walls cold and accusing. Elodie's eyes scanned every shadow, knowing recognition meant nothing against the unseen forces gathering. The city beyond the theater slept, oblivious to the terror concentrated within one cursed building. The candlelight trembled as if shivering, casting elongated specters across her pale face. A single slip could be fatal, yet she danced, compelled by the beauty she could not abandon. The air grew thick with the scent of old blood, a residue from tragedies long forgotten but not forgiven. She felt a pressure on her chest, invisible but suffocating, the theater alive with unseen menace. Every twirl carried a sense of finality, as if each spin brought her closer to the end. No one could have guessed the violence that awaited, hidden behind opulent curtains and gilded balconies. The whispers grew louder in her mind, chanting a macabre melody she could not escape. Each performance left her weaker, her strength siphoned away by a force both unseen and relentless. The audience cheered, oblivious, while shadows conspired to claim the dancer who had captivated them all. Time itself seemed to bend around her, moments stretching into eternity as dread wrapped tighter. Elodie's vision blurred, reality and nightmare intertwining in a deadly ballet of anticipation. Her final bow approached, and the chill in the air became a suffocating embrace of destiny. The unseen eyes in the dark corners held judgment, ready to strike with precise, cruel timing. Her body moved with grace, but her soul recoiled from the unseen predator stalking every step. Every breath she took was measured, every glance calculated, survival instinct clashing with artistry. The clock struck midnight. and the air trembled with expectation, a prelude to a horror yet unnamed. The whispers became screams only she could hear, threading terror into the fabric of her elegant motions. Every shadow seemed to stretch toward her, fingers of darkness reaching for a victim already chosen. The audience remained unaware, hypnotized by performance, yet oblivion had already marked its prey. Elodie's eyes widened as she sensed the final act approaching, her body moving on autopilot to a rhythm not her own. Her pulse raced, faster than the music, faster than the applause, faster than reason itself. The final note lingered, a suspended moment pregnant with dread, as if the world held its breath. And then, in that frozen heartbeat of time, she realized the dance was no longer hers to control. The shadows thickened, curling around Elodie like vipers ready to strike. Her reflection in the mirrored walls warped, showing glimpses of a face that was not her own. A cold breeze whispered through the theater, carrying scents of decay and old blood that made her stomach turn. The chandeliers above swayed slightly, though no wind stirred, casting moving patterns that resembled skeletal hands. Reports of vanished dancers haunted the city's gossip, names whispered in fear, each tale darker than the last. Every step Elodie took seemed to echo through unseen corridors, as though the theater itself measured her heartbeat. She felt eyes in every corner, some human, some not, watching, waiting for the fatal misstep. Her nightly costume became a shroud of dread, fabric heavy with the weight of the cursed performance. Legend spoke of a dancer who performed at midnight and never left the stage, her spirit trapped, condemned to relive the agony forever. Each rehearsal carried a subtle menace, a brush with forces she could neither see nor name. The music was beautiful, seductive, yet underlined with a rhythm that hinted at violence and bloodshed. Whispers in the wings told of a cult fascinated with the theater, its members studying each performer with obsessive intent. Elodie noticed symbols etched into the backstage woodwork, small and easily missed, yet radiating a sense of impending doom. The scent of poison hung faintly in the air, a warning she could not ignore, the taste of fear bitter on her tongue. Visitors claimed to see figures watching from the balconies, faces pale and grotesque, eyes hollow and hungry. Her audience applauded ignorance, unaware that their cheers fueled the cursed energy gathering in the dark corners of the theater. The city's police whispered about strange murders, victims found with no apparent cause, their bodies posed in macabre displays that mirrored stage performances. Every whisper, every shadow, every subtle movement reinforced the truth Elodie could no longer deny. She was at the center of a brutal, unseen design. Her movements became sharper, almost desperate, as though dancing could stave off the inevitable bloodshed looming over her. The backstage air vibrated with tension, objects trembling, mirrors fogging unnaturally, as if the theater breathed alongside her. A heavy sense of dread clung to her limbs, making each pirouette a struggle against invisible chains. The night stretched endlessly, a canvas for fear and tragedy, painted with strokes of cursed intent. Elodie's audience marveled at her brilliance, but she could feel the presence of something far older and crueler than applause. The flicker of candlelight created grotesque shadows that seemed to move with intention, stalking her, circling closer. Every performance left a residue of despair, a haunting that lingered long after the final bow, etching the theater with sorrow and menace. Her friends backstage vanished one by one. Some whispered to be victims of unseen forces, leaving Elodie isolated in her terror. The music swelled, notes twisting unnaturally, echoing as if from another dimension, amplifying her fear and the haunting energy of the theater. Every rehearsal, every dance step, was a negotiation with fate, a silent plea for mercy from forces that ignored her existence. The audience gasped at her daring, the brilliance of her midnight performance, unaware of the darkness threading through each gesture. The clock ticked toward midnight, each second a drumbeat of anxiety, signaling the approach of an unseen climax. She sensed eyes behind mirrors, in shadows, perhaps human, perhaps something else, calculating the moment of her demise. The walls themselves seemed to hum with expectation, a malignant anticipation that made her skin crawl. Elodie's final movements grew frantic, each turn a desperate attempt to escape the tightening grasp of the curse surrounding her. The chandeliers above cast long, spindly shadows that appeared to reach down, fingers grasping at her ankles and trailing her skirts. The smell of wax and old blood mingled, a subtle reminder of previous tragedies that stained the theater's history. Every heartbeat resonated with dread, and yet she danced on, compelled by forces that demanded her brilliance and her suffering. The audience's applause sounded distant, like a dream, while the theater's walls whispered secrets of vanished victims and macabre bargains. Each pirouette carried a history of torture, execution, and relentless obsession, threading the past into her present terror. The final note of the performance approached, lingering, a suspended moment of beauty twisted by fear and impending doom. And in that silence, Elodie felt the weight of all the tragedies before her, all the forgotten crimes that haunted Paris converging on her alone. Paris, 1821, was a city of shadows, gas lamps flickering against cobblestone streets that carried whispers of the past. The city thrived on art, decadence, and secrets, a perfect breeding ground for tragedy and forgotten crimes. Elodie was born into modest means, her childhood marked by early exposure to dance and the theater, yet also by a series of unexplained accidents around her family. Her father had vanished when she was 5, rumored to have been involved in clandestine activities, leaving a void filled with whispered fears. Her mother, fragile and cautious, encouraged Elodie's talent while warning her of the dangers lurking beyond the stage. The theater she frequented was infamous for its haunted reputation, built over centuries on grounds where blood had been spilled and dark bargains struck. Performers who disappeared or were found dead were often quietly replaced, their fates erased from public memory. Among the prominent patrons were men of power and secrecy, whose interests in performers often concealed sinister motives. Elodie's training was grueling, guided by mentors who pushed her beyond normal limits, believing brilliance required sacrifice. Her beauty and skill drew attention, admiration, and envy, placing her in the precarious position of both idol and target. The city's streets echoed with the footsteps of criminals and spies, each shadow a potential threat to anyone who drew notice. The midnight stage was her domain, yet it was also a magnet for those who thrived on control, torture, and manipulation. Police records spoke of vanished citizens, victims who disappeared without trace, their absences noted only in hushed gossip. In the theater, the air was thick with dust, candle smoke, and tension, a place where ambition often collided with malevolence. Elodie's life was intertwined with these dangers, her performances a stage for both art and survival. Every patron, every colleague carried their own secrets, some harmless, some deadly, creating a web of intrigue she had to navigate. A single misstep in this world could result in tragedy, a lesson she learned as props fell mysteriously, or costumes were sabotaged. The city's darker corners whispered of cults fascinated with blood, dance, and death, shadows that intersected with her path. Every alley she crossed seemed alive with unseen eyes, judging and plotting, a reminder that Paris held more than beauty and splendor. The cultural scene thrived alongside crime, creating a contrast of glittering performances and grim realities lurking behind closed doors. Elodie's mentor once warned her, "Talent draws attention, and attention draws darkness." Words that would haunt her as the nights grew longer. Her own instincts sharpened with every encounter, every mysterious letter, every vanished colleague, preparing her for dangers she could barely comprehend. The theater's layout was a labyrinth of corridors, trapdoors, and hidden chambers, each space a potential hiding place for conspiracies or instruments of harm. Each performance was a test of skill and vigilance, her artistry a shield against forces that sought to exploit her or worse. The city's elite often attended performances, their applause masking secret deals and clandestine observations aimed at those who dazzled and distracted. Elodie learned to recognize patterns, to sense anomalies in stage mechanics or audience reactions that hinted at danger lurking beneath the surface. The foggy streets outside mirrored the uncertainty of her world, concealing both predators and potential salvation in equal measure. Her reputation grew, making her both celebrated and envied, a target for those who used fear as a tool of power. In Paris, beauty and brilliance often came at the cost of blood, and Elodie's talent placed her squarely in the path of this macabre truth. Each day brought subtle threats, rumors of the cursed theater, and glimpses of a shadowed society fascinated by death and spectacle. Elodie's resolve hardened as she learned to navigate this duality. public admiration and private peril. Her life a constant balancing act between triumph and tragedy. Every whisper, every glance, every incident in this period shaped her destiny, steering her toward the night when darkness would strike definitively. The city itself seemed alive, a living witness to forgotten crimes. Each street and theater stage a repository of history's brutal secrets. Every ally was tested, every friend a potential victim, and Elodie's instincts became her most vital weapon in surviving the treacherous world she inhabited. The anticipation of danger grew as she matured, each year layering upon the last, creating an atmosphere of suspense and dread around her every move. Her life, intertwined with the cursed theater and shadowed city, was a story of artistry laced with peril, each day edging closer to the fatal midnight performance. Elodie's contemporaries whispered about her skill and the eerie aura that surrounded her, calling her both brilliant and cursed. The theater management remained tight-lipped about the disappearances of past performers, yet rumors spread like wildfire through the city streets. Candlelight reflected off gilded walls, revealing subtle marks and carvings that hinted at occult practices embedded in the theater's history. The backstage corridors were narrow and labyrinthine, shadows pooling in corners where sinister intentions lurked. Unseen eyes observed every rehearsal, every gesture, tracking her movements with obsessive precision. The patrons, influential and secretive, often lingered long after performances, their gazes fixed on Elodie with intentions unknown to her. The city buzzed with gossip of vanished dancers, some claiming supernatural forces, others a network of brutal human predators. Her friends noted her growing unease, the pallor of fear in her eyes, yet none could shield her from the unfolding danger. Each night, the scent of incense mingled with old blood, a signature of rituals performed in secrecy, heightening the sense of a cursed environment. The orchestra played melodies that seemed to summon something beyond comprehension, echoing through the theater's ancient halls with uncanny resonance. Every rehearsal carried a sense of foreboding, whispers of tragic fates entwined with her every pirouette, each movement shadowed by menace. Mysterious figures were sighted in the balconies, their faces hidden, yet eyes glinting with cruel fascination and expectation. Her mentor cautioned her repeatedly, emphasizing vigilance and awareness, warning that talent alone could not protect her from human and otherworldly malice. The city's darker elements, cults obsessed with performance and blood, were rumored to attend her shows, seeking both inspiration and sacrifice. The rumors of poisoned costumes and sabotaged props became more frequent, each incident eroding her sense of safety and stability. Every audience was a potential witness or conspirator, applause amassed concealing intentions steeped in cruelty and obsession. The streets outside the theater remained fog-laden, carrying the cries of the forgotten, victims of crime and superstition alike, echoing her own precarious existence. The midnight hour approached, its inevitability felt in every shadow, every tremor of candlelight, every distorted reflection in the mirrors. Every performer who preceded her had succumbed to tragedy or vanished mysteriously, their fates a warning etched into the theater's cursed walls. Elodie's body moved with practiced elegance, yet her mind remained alert to the subtle signals of danger, each gesture an instinctive response to unseen threats. The theater itself seemed alive, breathing with her movements, reacting to her presence, amplifying the suspense and dread that coiled around her. Every whisper of the audience, every cough, every movement in the wings was magnified into a potential threat, sharpening her awareness and her fear. Her nightly routines became rituals, rehearsing not only dance steps but also strategies of survival, blending art and vigilance seamlessly. Each incident, from disappearing props to fleeting shadows, fed the macabre narrative of the theater, embedding terror into her performances. Every rehearsal she survived added weight to the looming climax, a sense that something irreversible approached with every tick of the clock. The city's newspapers hinted at scandalous disappearances, yet none named her, preserving an ominous tension that hung heavy in the air. The interplay of light and shadow backstage seemed designed to disorient, to create uncertainty, making her vulnerable to unseen forces. The patron's obsession grew, the line between admiration and predation blurring in a theater steeped in history, bloodshed, and forgotten crimes. Her every interaction was scrutinized, from casual bows to delicate gestures, each moment a potential pivot toward tragedy. Elodie understood that Paris demanded perfection, brilliance and compliance, yet offered peril, deceit, and cruelty in return. Her performances were not mere entertainment. They were survival exercises, dances through a minefield of human ambition and supernatural malice. Each night, the theater became a crucible of suspense, a stage where forgotten crimes and brutal intentions intersected with artistry and fear. The faint sound of footsteps in empty corridors, the shifting of shadows, and the subtle brush of cold air were constant reminders of her vulnerability. Her mentor's warnings echoed in her mind, each word a thread connecting talent, danger, and the inevitable tragedy that awaited. She had become attuned to the theater's moods, sensing shifts in energy, tension, and the invisible presence of those who would see her fail. The audience remained unaware, captivated by the beauty of her movements, while the undercurrent of menace thickened, unseen but undeniable. Every night, Elodie danced on the edge of survival, artistry intertwined with dread, each step bringing her closer to the unknown culmination of the theater's dark history. The city, the theater, the shadows, and the whispers all converged around her, forging a path toward a climax that would forever mark her story in Parisian lore. Rumors of the midnight performances spread through Paris, whispers of vanished dancers and cursed stages filling the alleyways and salons alike. Elodie felt their weight, each murmur a thread tightening around her destiny, binding her closer to the inevitable tragedy. The theater seemed to anticipate her movements, every shadow stretching unnaturally, following her as she rehearsed tirelessly. Backstage, objects shifted on their own, small signs of a presence she could neither see nor confront. Mysterious letters appeared, scrawled in trembling ink, warning of doom if she continued her performances. The city's elite discussed her brilliance in hushed tones, unaware that fascination often preceded brutality among those who held power. Her friends grew uneasy, recounting stories of performers who had vanished after midnight appearances, victims of the theater's dark allure. Elodie ignored the whispers outwardly, yet the chill they left in her bones could not be denied. Candlelight flickered in the dressing rooms, shadows twisting into grotesque shapes that mimicked the dance she rehearsed nightly. Every rehearsal carried a tension that went beyond performance, a sense of impending catastrophe lurking in each measured step. The orchestra's notes took on a macabre cadence, each melody resonating with the specter of vanished victims and forgotten crimes. She sensed eyes in every corner, some human, some other, tracking, judging, waiting for the moment to strike. The audience anticipated the midnight show with fervor, blind to the danger converging within the theater's walls. Elodie discovered symbols etched into the floorboards, barely visible but pulsating with cursed significance, marking the path toward inevitable bloodshed. Every encounter backstage seemed calculated, interactions laced with veiled threats from those who wielded influence in both art and darkness. The air grew heavier each night, scented faintly with incense, old blood, and decay, a prelude to the tragic events looming ahead. Every rumor she heard, every shadow she felt, reinforced the truth that the theater was a stage not just for dance, but for terror. A mysterious figure was often spotted at the balcony's edge, face obscured, observing, ensuring the course of events followed a predetermined path. The performers around her were distracted, ignorant, or complicit, leaving Elodie isolated amid a web of conspiracies and curses. Every whisper and glance carried layers of meaning, a subtle warning she struggled to interpret as danger approached silently. The city outside slept, oblivious, while the theater's corridors buzzed with anticipation of a crime that was as much supernatural as human. Her nightly costume felt like armor, a fragile shield against forces she could neither fully see nor comprehend. Every rehearsal drew her closer to the fateful performance, tension coiling tighter around her, threatening to snap at the midnight hour. The shadows behind the stage seemed alive, stretching and writhing, carrying the collective weight of previous tragedies and bloodshed. Every note of the music amplified her unease, echoing with a rhythm that hinted at horror yet to unfold. Elodie's mind raced with possibilities, every potential threat intertwined with the beauty she presented on stage. Every observation, every flicker of movement, reinforced that she was no longer performing for admiration alone, but for survival. Her reflection in the mirrors showed not just herself, but the faint outlines of previous victims, their tragedies merging with her own impending doom. The rumors outside and inside the theater converged, creating a narrative of cursed brilliance and brutal expectation around her. Every night, The line between audience, conspirator, and predator blurred, leaving Elodie in a state of constant vigilance and fear. Every heartbeat echoed the rhythm of the city, the theater, and the unseen forces manipulating her fate toward a macabre conclusion. The stage awaited her midnight debut, a crucible where talent, terror, and tragedy would collide with irrevocable consequence. Every twirl, every leap, every gesture carried with it the weight of history's forgotten crimes, pressing down upon her fragile form. Every shadow seemed to whisper promises of doom, and yet she continued, compelled by artistry and survival instincts entwined. She felt the presence of unseen watchers, their intentions inscrutable yet palpably malignant, ensuring that the build-up to the climax tightened with every passing moment. Elodie's rehearsals grew more frantic, each movement a desperate effort to master both dance and survival. The theater walls seemed to breathe with her fear, shadows stretching and twisting as if alive, anticipating her next step. Mysterious figures lingered in the balconies, faces obscured, their eyes cold and calculating, watching her every gesture. A letter left on her dressing table warned of a cursed fate, its ink smeared as if written in blood, the words chilling and precise. The orchestra's music shifted subtly, notes bending unnaturally, echoing the sinister pulse of the theater and its hidden horrors. Every prop backstage carried a potential threat, objects subtly tampered with, ready to betray her at the critical moment. Her reflection in mirrors distorted, showing glimpses of figures behind her, vanishing when she turned her head, yet leaving an undeniable trace of dread. The whispers she heard were not just of the living, but of the vanished, their voices threading through corridors and shadows, feeding fear into the very walls. The city outside remained oblivious, fog curling around streets like fingers pointing toward the theater's dark heart. Elodie sensed a pattern in the anomalies, each rehearsal, each shadow, each whispered warning a calculated sequence leading toward inevitable tragedy. Her friends attempted to caution her, recounting tales of victims who had been brilliant dancers, now vanished without trace, their brilliance immortalized only by fear. Every night, the clock's ticking became a drumbeat, a relentless march toward the midnight performance and the climax that would seal her fate. The floorboards seemed to shift underfoot, a subtle warning of hidden dangers, of forces unseen yet palpably malevolent. The scent of incense mingled with something iron-tinged, like blood, signaling the presence of unseen rituals and cruel intent lurking near. Every shadow in the theater seemed purposeful, some moving independently, others stretching unnaturally, reacting to her presence alone. The patrons' fascination grew, a dangerous obsession that blurred the line between admiration and predation, their intent cloaked but tangible. Elodie's nerves were taut, each muscle poised for action, dancing between artistry and awareness, aware that any lapse could invite catastrophe. Every rehearsal was a rehearsal not just of steps, but of survival, a choreography entwined with vigilance, instinct, and dread. The backstage corridors echoed faintly with sounds that had no source, whispers and footsteps blending with the music, creating a disorienting atmosphere of menace. Every prop, every costume, every note seemed infused with intent, as if the theater itself conspired to test her, to bend her toward disaster. The shadowed figures in the wings became more frequent, appearing briefly, vanishing instantly, leaving behind a sensation of scrutiny and judgment. Every gaze, whether from audience or hidden observer, carried a weight that Elodie could feel pressing upon her shoulders, guiding her toward the fatal hour. The subtle manipulations of the stage, the shifting of light, the tilting of platforms, the seemingly random noises, were orchestrated by unknown hands to heighten fear and uncertainty. Each rehearsal heightened her awareness, forcing her to parse reality from illusion, danger from distraction, survival from performance. The city's gossip carried legends of dancers marked by destiny, cursed performers whose brilliance became their undoing, a fate now entwined with Elodie. The theater, steeped in forgotten crimes and brutality, seemed to pulse with expectation, a living entity predating her very existence. Her costume, heavy with history and superstition, clung to her, a reminder that talent alone could not shield her from predation. Every whisper, every glance, every tremor of candlelight reinforced the theater's macabre personality, alive with intent and malice. Every rehearsal, every shadow, every step drew her inexorably closer to the midnight performance, the stage set for bloodshed, tragedy, and a climax she could not escape. Every heartbeat synced with the theater's rhythm, an unholy tempo that measured the narrowing gap between brilliance and doom, performance and demise. The midnight hour arrived, heavy and suffocating, as Elodie stepped onto the stage, her heart pounding with dread and anticipation. Every eye in the audience fixed on her, oblivious to the danger coiling in the shadows like a predator waiting for the perfect moment. The chandeliers above cast distorted light, elongating shadows that danced alongside her, some moving independently as if alive. Her movements were precise, elegant, yet underpinned by a tension that made each step feel like a negotiation with death. The whispers in the wings grew louder, threading through the theater, voices of vanished dancers and unknown entities weaving a tapestry of fear. Every prop seemed rigged with silent intent, the slightest misstep threatening disaster or bloodshed. Her costume shimmered under candlelight, a fragile armor against forces both human and otherworldly, concealing terror beneath grace. The orchestra played a macabre rhythm, each note amplifying the weight of the cursed environment, the tragic history embedded in every plank and beam. Every pirouette brought her closer to the unseen presence stalking her, shadows coiling in anticipation, hungry for the climax of the night. Every blink of the audience, every gasp and whisper was drowned by the oppressive atmosphere, the theater itself holding its breath. The cursed symbols etched into the stage floor seemed to pulse beneath her feet, marking the path of impending doom. Every movement she made was mirrored by shadows that twisted unnaturally, as if the darkness itself participated in the performance. Every sound backstage, a creak, a shifting, a faint scuff, hinted at the presence of something cruel and deliberate, unseen yet intimately connected to her fate. Her eyes darted across the stage, sensing presences that should not exist, figures poised to strike with brutal precision. Every leap and arabesque carried the weight of both artistry and survival, a dangerous balance between beauty and death. Every note of the orchestra resonated with foreboding, echoing the tragedies of performers who had vanished before, their victims forgotten, but their blood lingering in the theater. The shadows in the balconies stretched toward her, fingers of darkness pressing on the edges of her vision, drawing her into a web of inevitability. Every heartbeat matched the rhythm of terror, each pulse a countdown to the moment the unseen would strike and claim her. Every whisper in the corridors behind the stage threaded through her mind, a chant of cursed anticipation, calling her toward the fatal climax. Her body moved with practiced grace, yet instinct screamed warnings of danger lurking in every shadow. Every corner, every flicker of light, every spectator, captivated by performance, remained unaware of the macabre forces converging to claim her, their applause masking the horror awaiting. Every subtle change in temperature, every sudden draft, every candle flicker became a signal, a harbinger of the tragedy about to unfold. Every movement, every spin, every lift carried a silent scream, a desperate plea for survival hidden beneath elegance and poise. Every inch of the stage was a trap, every gesture choreographed by forces unseen, ensuring that her brilliance and fate intertwined in a single, brutal moment. Every whisper from the wings, every distorted reflection in the mirrors, every trembling shadow converged, signaling the approach of the inevitable climax. The orchestra reached a crescendo, the music swelling as if aware of the horror it accompanied, echoing with the memory of forgotten victims. Every breath Elodie took was measured, each inhale and exhale synchronized with the rhythm of terror that suffused the theater. Every movement she made drew her closer to the point of no return, each step a thread binding her to the tragic outcome awaiting in the dark corners. The clock struck, a resonant chime echoing through the hall, marking the exact moment when artistry, fear, and death would collide. The audience leaned forward, enthralled by the performance, blind to the unseen predator circling her, poised to transform brilliance into brutal finality. Every flicker of candlelight, every creaking floorboard, every shadowed figure pressed her toward the inevitable, leaving no escape from the tragedy closing in. The final spin approached, a culmination of fear, elegance, and dread, each rotation a heartbeat toward her fated end. Every sound, every sight, every sensation heightened her awareness, the macabre energy of the theater focusing entirely on her, the victim chosen for the night. Elodie's final movements became a blur, grace entwined with panic, each step a desperate attempt to outmaneuver forces she could not see. Shadows stretched unnaturally, converging toward her like fingers, eager to claim the dancer whose brilliance had captivated and haunted Paris. The audience remained oblivious, applauding the performance, unaware that the stage had transformed into a crucible of death. Every heartbeat thundered in her ears, echoing through the theater, syncing with the malevolent rhythm of the unseen predator lurking in darkness. The chandeliers flickered violently, casting grotesque silhouettes across her body, elongating her movements into distorted, macabre shapes. Every note of the orchestra's crescendo mirrored her terror, the music vibrating through the floors and walls as if the theater itself conspired against her. Every glance toward the wings revealed fleeting shadows, figures that vanished when confronted, leaving a residue of dread and certainty of impending doom. Every breath she took was measured, every motion deliberate, balancing art and survival in a dance dictated by fate and cruelty. The cursed symbols on the stage floor glowed faintly, a supernatural pulse that drew her forward, toward the center where the climax would strike. Every movement she had rehearsed for years now became instinctual, each pirouette and arabesque an act of defiance against the darkness closing in. Every whisper from the vanished, every echo of past victims threaded through the air, a macabre accompaniment to her final steps. Every prop, every curtain, every dangling rope seemed animated, participating in a ritual of execution, orchestrated by forces unseen. Every shadow that pressed against her periphery whispered threats of bloodshed, torture, and condemnation, marking her as the destined victim. The air thickened with anticipation, each inhalation carrying the scent of decay, old blood, and something else, something cursed and alive. Every motion, once elegant and fluid, now carried a frantic, desperate rhythm, a fight against the inexorable pull of the theater's malevolent energy. Every step toward the center amplified the tension, the culmination of rumors, disappearances, and the history of brutality converging in a single, tragic instant. Every candle flicker revealed fleeting figures lurking just beyond sight, their intent clear, their patience infinite, waiting for the final act to unfold. Every glance in the mirrors reflected not her image alone, but the silhouettes of previous victims, a haunting reminder of the dance's deadly lineage. Every heartbeat resonated with dread, each pulse echoing through the walls, syncing with the rhythm of terror that now dominated the theater. Every motion became a negotiation with death, a ballet of fear, elegance, and survival, where one misstep could lead to brutal execution. Every audience member's gasp, every cheer fell into the shadows, absorbed and distorted, fueling the cursed energy that encircled her. Every whisper in the corridors behind the stage seemed louder, forming a crescendo of ominous warnings she could not ignore. Every subtle change in temperature, every shiver of the floorboards, every flick of the curtains heightened her awareness, signaling that the climax had arrived. The final pose approached, her body tense, limbs trembling, each movement a defiance against forces determined to claim her. Every shadow, every flicker of candlelight, every distorted reflection converged in a single, orchestrated moment of brutal inevitability. Every breath caught in her chest, every muscle strained as the unseen predator revealed itself, invisible yet overwhelmingly present. Every second stretched into eternity, the audience unaware of the macabre ritual unfolding on the stage before them. Every eye in the theater, mortal and otherwise, seemed fixed on her, marking the moment when artistry collided with fate, tragedy, and forgotten crime. Every motion slowed as she reached the center, the culmination of suspense, fear, and cursed anticipation poised to claim its victim. Every whisper, every shadow, every heartbeat aligned perfectly with the moment when Elodie's brilliance and the theater's darkness met in a final, haunting tableau. The stage fell silent, the echoes of applause lingering like a hollow memory, masking the horror that had unfolded. Elodie lay motionless, her body marked by the culmination of the theater's cruelty, victims of unseen hands and cursed intent. The audience remained unaware, captivated only by the beauty of performance, oblivious to the brutality that had transpired just beyond perception. The chandeliers swayed gently, casting fractured shadows across the floor, highlighting the traces of blood and the macabre remnants of the climax. The theater seemed to exhale, a living entity releasing tension, as if satisfied with the completion of its ritual of terror. Every prop and curtain retained an impression of the tragic event, a silent testament to the violence that had occurred, preserved within the walls and shadows. Every whisper that floated through the corridors told a story of fear, suffering, and the inexorable progression of the curse that haunted the stage. Her companions backstage stared in disbelief, frozen by shock and dread, witnessing a tragedy that defied comprehension or intervention. The city beyond continued unaware, streets fog-laden and indifferent, while Paris absorbed another forgotten crime into its shadowed history. Every patron left with applause on their lips but nothing of the truth, their ignorance allowing the curse to remain unbroken and hidden. Every investigator who later entered the scene found little, evidence erased by meticulous cruelty and the supernatural influence surrounding the theater. Every rumor about Elodie's disappearance spread quickly, distorted by fear, gossip, and the allure of the mysterious, cementing her story as both tragic and haunting. Every historian who later chronicled events would struggle to separate fact from legend, the line blurred by shadows, superstition, and forgotten victims. The city's elite whispered in secret salons, debating the tragedy, some fascinated, some horrified, all touched by the macabre performance they could never forget. Every performer who followed her felt the chill of history, the weight of expectation and dread that her final act had cemented into the theater's legacy. Every night afterward, the theater retained a spectral presence, haunted by the echo of her movements, a lingering trace of blood, artistry, and terror. Every visitor reported sensations of being watched, faint whispers and shadows that moved independently, manifestations of the cursed energy she had drawn into the performance. Every attempt to revive the theater's reputation was shadowed by her memory, the cursed and tragic events creating a lasting imprint on the city's consciousness. Every letter, note, and symbol left behind told a story of obsession, manipulation, and death, a chilling testament to the fate Elodie could not escape. Every report of strange occurrences, vanished individuals, and eerie whispers reinforced the theater's reputation as a locus of danger, a stage for both brilliance and brutality. The city itself seemed to mourn, fog curling around rooftops like spectral fingers reaching for forgotten victims, embracing the macabre and the tragic. Every artist who stepped onto the stage felt the weight of her legacy, a cautionary tale of brilliance, obsession, and the deadly consequences of attention. Every shadow in the theater became a reminder, stretching across walls and floors, connecting past horrors to present fear. Every witness carried fragments of dread, stories that would evolve into legend, blending forgotten crimes with supernatural mystery and human malevolence. Every rehearsal, performance, and whispered rumor now echoed with the memory of Elodie, her vanished brilliance immortalized in tragedy and haunting reflection. The city's streets whispered her name in fog and alleyways, a reminder of vanished talent and the brutal cost of art entwined with darkness. Every night, the theater's walls seemed to breathe with residual menace, a cursed energy reinforced by her final, unforgettable act. Every historian and chronicler who approached the story sensed a chill, a subtle, haunting reminder that some tragedies cannot be contained by logic or memory. Every fragment of evidence, each shadow, each trace of blood or movement, became a puzzle piece in a narrative of cruelty, obsession, and forgotten crimes. Every subsequent performance carried a palpable tension, a tribute to the tragedy, and a reminder of the theater's power to blend artistry and death. Every element, the music, the shadows, the whispers, remained charged with memory, preserving Elodie's final act in the collective conscience of the cursed venue. The city buzzed with rumors, the tale of Elodie's fate spreading through salons, taverns, and back alleys, each retelling more macabre than the last. The theater remained sealed for nights, its halls silent yet vibrating with residual dread, a monument to vanished brilliance and brutal consequence. Every performer who entered afterward sensed the weight of history, shadows pressing close, whispers threading through empty corridors, carrying warning and fear. Every patron recalled the night differently, memories blurred by shock, fascination, and the inexplicable aura of the cursed stage. Every investigator who examined the scene found anomalies, floorboards misaligned, mirrors fogged unnaturally, subtle traces of blood with no clear origin. Every friend and colleague mourned in private, afraid that attention or curiosity might attract the same fate that had claimed Elodie. Every historian attempting to document the event struggled to separate fact from legend, a dance of truth and superstition entwined with tragedy. The city itself seemed altered, fog heavier in certain quarters, streets quieter after midnight, as though the memory of her final act lingered in the air. Every whisper of the vanished carried through generations, a cautionary tale of talent, obsession, and the theater's relentless, brutal appetite. Every piece of the theater, from chandeliers to stage curtains, was imprinted with her presence, haunted by her movements, gestures, and the bloodshed entwined with the climax. Every visitor reported chills, flickering lights, and shadows that seemed to move independently, the cursed energy of her final performance lingering. Every new performer felt the weight of expectation and fear, a chilling reminder that brilliance could attract obsession, cruelty, or death. Every legend told about Elodie emphasized her beauty and talent, yet underscored the tragedy of her demise, a cautionary tale whispered in fearful reverence. Every historian noted that the audience remained unaware, their admiration masking the underlying horror, a city enthralled yet blind to the macabre reality. Every researcher who entered the theater sensed an oppressive presence, shadows seemingly watching, the lingering echo of her final movements alive within the walls. Every rumor spoke of curses, vanished performers, and spectral figures, connecting Elodie's fate to centuries of forgotten crimes and brutality. Every artifact left behind, the notes, costumes, and props, was treated with reverence and fear, reminders of the tragic performance that defined the theater's legacy. Every whisper in the dark corridors spoke of vengeance, curses, or simply the relentless gravity of death and disappearance. Every artist entering the space became aware of the unbroken cycle of observation, danger, and the possibility of repeating history. Every night, the theater resonated with echoes of her final act, a haunting presence blending artistry, fear, and brutal inevitability. Every patron who returned after her demise sensed the air thick with residual tension, shadows moving oddly, flickers of sound hinting at stories untold. Every ghostly trace reinforced the theater's reputation as a locus of cursed brilliance and tragic destiny, drawing visitors and performers alike into its shadowed past. Every historian, scholar, and chronicler acknowledged the theater's power to preserve memory, embedding horror and artistry within its walls. Every heartbeat echoed the tragedy, every breath carried the memory of vanished talent, cementing Elodie's legacy in macabre infamy. Every reflection in mirrors showed fleeting glimpses of her, a spectral reminder of the night when art and death collided with fatal precision. Every shadow on the stage whispered of the vanished, each corner of the theater charged with the memory of brutality, obsession, and cursed performance. Every night thereafter, the theater became a monument to Elodie's vanished life, a haunted space where tragedy and artistry intertwined indefinitely. Every resident of Paris who heard the story felt the weight of forgotten crimes, a chilling testament to human cruelty, cursed fate, and the macabre allure of midnight performances. The circumstances of Elodie's death remained shrouded in ambiguity, whispered rumors clashing with fragmented evidence, creating a tapestry of fear and speculation. Parisian society speculated endlessly, some claiming supernatural involvement, others insisting on a human perpetrator lurking in the shadows. Every historian noted inconsistencies in reports, contradictions that fueled legends of the cursed dancer who performed at midnight. Shadows in the theater seemed to retain her presence, moving independently, leaving traces of cold, a sense of being watched by something unseen. Every object connected to her final performance. Costumes, props, even floorboards appeared altered, shifted, or imbued with unexplained energy. Every account from witnesses carried subtle distortions, as if fear and superstition had rewritten memory, blending fact with macabre imagination. Every investigator reported sensations of unease, inexplicable chills, and glimpses of movement that defied natural explanation. Theories proliferated. Secret cults obsessed with her, dark rituals performed backstage, a curse cast upon her by envious performers, or spirits claiming vengeance. Every note in the orchestra that night was analyzed, some claiming the music itself had been imbued with unnatural cadence, a ritualistic echo of violence. Every shadow photographed or observed after the incident displayed anomalies, shapes and forms not attributable to ordinary reflection or light. The city's elite quietly feared the theater, avoiding mention of Elodie, yet drawn repeatedly to its performances, as if compelled by the unresolved mystery. Every researcher who examined the stage described faint symbols, barely discernible carvings that pulsed with unnatural rhythm and energy. Every local legend connected her story to previous vanishings, victims erased from memory but lingering in spectral narratives that refused closure. Her disappearance and death inspired fascination among occultists, historians, and thrill-seekers, all attempting to decode the theater's macabre language. Every attempt to reconstruct the timeline of her final performance revealed gaps, moments where witnesses claimed conflicting events or failed to perceive critical details. Every whispered story carried hints of bloodshed, poison, and predestination, merging human cruelty with supernatural speculation. Every seance conducted in the theater reported sensations of weight pressing down, shadows shifting, faint laughter echoing through empty corridors. Every scholar noted that attempts to rationalize her death failed, scientific explanations faltering in the face of inexplicable phenomena. Her diary, partially recovered, contained cryptic notes of fear, unseen eyes and forces stalking her, suggesting knowledge of impending doom. Every entry hinted at cursed rituals, mysterious patrons, and premonitions that were ignored until the fatal performance. Every artifact connected to Elodie was imbued with unease: mirrors, costumes, props, each carrying residue of tragedy, suspense, and possibly supernatural energy. Every story told in Parisian salons hinted at a broader conspiracy, a network of those who manipulated talent for obsession, power, and bloodshed. Every shadow in the theater's corners seemed to pulse with life, responding to visitors' movements as though aware of their thoughts and intentions. Every visitor reported the sensation of being observed by entities that transcended natural explanation, lingering echoes of the vanished dancer. Every historian debated whether the mystery lay in human malice, the theater's cursed architecture, or a combination of both. Each argument incomplete. Every attempt to exorcise or cleanse the theater failed, leaving it steeped in dread, haunted by Elodie's vanished presence, and a mystery that refused resolution. Every generation remembered her as both a victim and a legend, a figure caught between artistry, obsession, and forces that defied reason, eternally entwined with the macabre heart of Paris. Elodie's fate continued to baffle investigators, historians and occultists, each theory more chilling than the last, none conclusive. The theater's corridors retained a palpable tension, shadows lingering longer than physics allowed, whispering secrets of vanished victims. Every artifact, from floorboards to costumes, seemed to harbor residual energy, traces of bloodshed, and remnants of cursed intent. Every visitor reported fleeting glimpses of her, a spectral figure performing pirouettes in empty spaces, vanishing when approached. Every photograph captured anomalies, blurred shapes, impossible shadows, subtle distortions hinting at supernatural involvement. The city's gossip intertwined with legend, portraying Elodie as both brilliant and damned, a cautionary tale of artistry entangled with obsession. Every historian attempting to reconcile accounts faced contradictions. Eyewitness reports, incomplete records, and the theater's enigmatic design thwarting clarity. Every occultist suggested the presence of a curse, a ritual bound to the midnight performance, its energy persisting in the very structure of the theater. Every scientist dismissed supernatural claims, yet noted unexplainable occurrences, temperature drops, inexplicable reflections, and objects moving without cause. Every new performer sensed a strange compulsion, as if the theater itself demanded perfection, while subtly threatening calamity. Every corner of the building seemed to respond to presence, walls pulsing with energy, floors vibrating with faint echoes of footsteps long gone. Every whispered legend spoke of cults obsessed with controlling talent, infusing performances with ritualistic power and a touch of malevolence. Every investigation into her death revealed gaps, vanished witnesses, altered timelines, and the subtle erasure of evidence that made conclusions impossible. Every reflection in mirrors appeared to contain not just her image, but faint traces of other figures, victims of the cursed stage, their presence chilling and undeniable. Every rehearsal afterward was shadowed by the memory of Elodie, performers sensing unseen eyes and movements that should not have existed. Every historian concluded that Paris itself, its streets, theaters, and fog-laden alleys, had become complicit in preserving the mystery of her disappearance and demise. Every supernatural account emphasized her brilliance as a magnet for obsession, with the cursed performance acting as both catalyst and prison. Every ghost story referenced the midnight dancer, warning of vanished talent, cursed stages, and the fine line between life, death, and artistry. Every urban legend merged fact and fiction, the details distorted, yet maintaining a kernel of terrifying truth, ensuring Elodie's memory endured. Every local guide, tour, and storyteller spoke cautiously, avoiding too much attention, yet unable to resist recounting the haunting tale. Every mysterious death or disappearance afterward in the theater was linked back to her, a chain of events blending human cruelty and spectral influence. Every candlelit rehearsal carried reminders of the past, whispered voices, fleeting shadows, and the macabre presence of the vanished dancer. Every performer, aware of the history, felt a tension that transcended logic. The theater itself a participant in the ongoing drama of fear. Every investigator, scholar, and chronicler acknowledged the limits of understanding, that some tragedies exist to endure as mysteries rather than solved crimes. Every night, the theater exhaled a chill, a pulse of cursed energy, reminding visitors and performers alike that Elodie's vanished brilliance was eternal. Every observer concluded that the theater's history, the vanished dancer, and the cursed performance were inseparable, bound together in a tapestry of bloodshed, fear, and artistry. Every whispered account emphasized that some stories defy closure, that Elodie's fate, brilliant and tragic, remained an unsolved, haunting enigma of Parisian history. Every shadow, every flicker of light, every gust of wind seemed to carry her memory, the cursed and macabre energy of a life vanished yet eternally present. Every mystery surrounding her death continued to captivate and terrify, ensuring that Elodie, the dancer who performed at midnight, would never truly be forgotten. The theater fell into silence, the echoes of Elodie's final performance lingering like a ghost that refused to leave. Shadows seemed to stretch longer, reaching toward the audience, the stage, and the city itself, carrying the weight of her vanished life. The city whispered her name, a tragic refrain threading through fog-laden streets and alleyways, connecting past horrors with present unease. Every corner of the theater retained her presence, a macabre imprint of artistry intertwined with bloodshed and cursed intent. Every visitor entering after her sensed the weight of history, the pulse of dread, and the invisible eyes that followed each step. Every mirror reflected not only the observer, but also glimpses of Elodie, a spectral reminder of brilliance and tragedy entwined. Every candle flicker, every shifting shadow, every creaking floorboard carried a memory of her pirouettes, each one a dance of fear, grace, and impending doom. Every historian noted that her story defied closure, blending artistry with forgotten crimes, leaving a haunting reflection on human obsession and cruelty. Every whispered legend spoke of talent and ambition punished, brilliance claimed by forces both human and supernatural, forever haunting the city. Every performance thereafter felt the echo of her presence, performers and audience alike unknowingly paying tribute to her vanished life. Every document, diary, and artifact told fragments of a story, incomplete yet powerful, a testament to artistry interwoven with dread. Every shadow in the theater seemed to pulse with memory, the stage itself, preserving the tragic history of a dancer, whose brilliance invited both admiration and fatal attention. Every breath taken in her presence carried a chill, a reminder that some beauty is inseparable from horror, that brilliance can be both a gift and a curse. Every reflection, every whisper, every faint trace of movement echoed the macabre truth. Elodie's life had been stolen, yet her legend remained eternal. Every story told in Parisian salons carried her memory, a narrative of vanished talent, obsession, and the tragic consequences of a cursed stage. Every night, the theater exhaled a silent warning, its walls soaked with memory, blood, and the brilliance of a dancer condemned to vanish. Every gaze upon the empty stage conjured her spirit, graceful yet tragic, a haunting reminder of artistry entwined with fatal destiny. Every generation that entered the theater felt the pull of her story, a mixture of fear, fascination, and respect for a life lost too soon. Every candle that flickered in her honor cast shadows that danced with remembrance, keeping alive the memory of her brilliance and her cursed fate. Every whispered account, every historical note, and every retelling of her story ensured that Elodie's presence remained, haunting, tragic, and unforgettable. Every corner, every mirror, every shadow bore witness to the collision of artistry, obsession, and macabre inevitability, a dance that ended in vanished life. Every soul who heard the tale felt the chill, the weight of forgotten crimes, and the reminder that some stories never find resolution. only echo across time. Every note of music played on that stage afterward seemed to carry a fragment of her spirit, a resonance of beauty shadowed by tragedy. Every whisper of the city spoke of talent lost, a dancer claimed by forces beyond understanding, leaving only legend in her wake. Every breath of wind through the empty theater carried her memory, soft yet insistent, a tragic lullaby echoing through the corridors of history. Every gaze at the midnight stage reminded all that brilliance, obsession and danger were inseparable, and that some vanishings could never be undone. Every story remembered, every shadow noticed, every heart that felt her absence ensured Elodie's spirit lingered. Eternal, tragic, and unforgettable, the city itself seemed to mourn, fog curling around rooftops like spectral fingers, carrying the memory of Elodie's vanished brilliance and tragic fate. Every street she had walked whispered of her presence, the echoes of performance and terror interwoven into the fabric of Parisian nights. Every performer who stepped onto the stage afterward felt a weight, a silent warning embedded in shadows, mirrors, and the lingering scent of candle smoke. Every historian chronicling her story struggled with contradictions, balancing fact, rumor, and legend. Yet the macabre truth remained undeniable. Every audience member, unaware of the full extent of horror, carried fragments of dread, a resonance of vanished talent and cursed artistry. Every corner of the theater bore witness to tragedy, each creaking floorboard, flickering light, and darkened balcony a reminder of human cruelty and supernatural influence. Every artifact, diary and costume preserved the memory, a haunting testament to artistry entwined with obsession and fatal consequence. Every shadow seemed alive, stretching across walls and floors, a silent observer of those who dared to enter her domain. Every candlelit performance evoked her presence, a ghostly dancer whose brilliance had drawn admiration, envy, and ultimately brutal fate. Every rumor, every whispered recounting, reinforced the idea that some stories resist closure, existing instead as perpetual cautionary tales. Every soul who entered the theater felt tension coiling, an invisible thread connecting past tragedies with present fear, a macabre continuum. Every heartbeat, every inhalation, every subtle movement within the theater resonated with the memory of her vanished life. Her artistry transformed into legend. Every historian, scholar, and chronicler acknowledged the limits of comprehension, that some vanishings defy logic, blending human malevolence and inexplicable forces. Every shadowed corridor, every flicker of candlelight, every faint whisper carried the imprint of her final performance, an eternal reminder of the cost of brilliance. Every new performer sensed unseen eyes, an oppressive weight of expectation and dread, the legacy of artistry, obsession, and tragic demise. Every city tale, every urban legend, and every ghost story referenced Elodie, the dancer who performed at midnight, marking her as both victim and spectral legend. Every night, the theater exhaled a presence, an echo of vanished talent, a reminder that artistry could attract both admiration and fatal obsession. Every reflection in mirrors revealed traces of movement unseen, shadows that mirrored her grace yet hinted at horror and vanished life. Every note played on the stage, every whisper in the wings, every creak of floorboards carried fragments of her story, immortalized in fear, beauty, and tragedy. Every heart that remembered her felt the chill, the awe, and the macabre fascination of a life stolen yet eternally present. Every retelling emphasized vanished talent, cursed stages, and the intersection of human cruelty with forces beyond comprehension. Every night the city slept, yet the memory of Elodie danced through the streets, a haunting presence, tragic and eternal. Every visitor left with a sense of reverence, dread, and the haunting beauty of a story that would never fade, a permanent mark on the heart of Paris. Every shadow, every flicker of light, every whispered tale preserved her, a dancer whose brilliance and fate became inseparable, a haunting reflection of human ambition, obsession, and the macabre. Every generation that discovered her story understood that some vanishings are eternal, and some legends, tragic and cursed, endure beyond life itself.